Good morning, friends. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. Many of you might be thinking that I have vanished for too long from the YouTube. Maybe that's a sign of abandoning my own channel. But that's not really the case. As an academic, I remain busy with many research activities, teaching activities, and meanwhile, I had a 10-day gap between 6th and 16th August going to a conference in the UK, and where I had done some enjoyable scientific discussions and conference, and also visited some wonderful museums in London, and had a beautiful trip to Edinburgh, the city of, or Edinburgh if you want to call, the city of James Clerk Maxwell, who gave us the mathematical theory of electromagnetism. So on 6th August, I flew from New Delhi to London and got down, took the famous London Underground, and which is the oldest underground system in the world, and which took me into London Centre in King's Cross, which is a famous railway station, and there's a St Pancras railway station on its side, from where Eurostar trains leave for Paris. So that's a very happening area, kind of. There's a British Museum nearby, and so we had a good walk. And next day we went to one of our museum visits. There was this Victoria and Albert Museum, and followed by the Natural History Museum, where it's a museum about life and earth, about geology and modern, and about biology. Biology means natural history, the other in one sense. It's called the Museum of Natural History. So there is, of course, in the center of that building is a statue of Charles Darwin. But because I was celebrating the 200 years of Alfred Russel Wallace in this channel, I wanted to see where his statue was, because his statue was opened in 2019, and it was opened and inaugurated and made available for public in 2019 by none other than the great Sir David Attenborough, whose wildlife and nature films are known all over the world. There is a small sound in the AC. I do not know whether that's good, or maybe should I can just shut down the AC for some time so that this sound vanishes. Okay. So sorry for this little movement. So I want to keep my videos as natural as possible, so that uh, people might say, "Oh, you old guy, why don't you edit this stuff?" Of course, I can edit this stuff and get it done, but let it be as I am. Let it be with my own limitations. And so I was searching for Alfred Russel Wallace's statue. Wanted to do a little film, which I would like to upload to my YouTube as a part of the celebration. But interestingly enough, I had this idea that Brits have this, very, very strong sense of history, a strong sense of showing respect to the people of their country, which they have done enough to Darwin, of course, which was absolutely clear. But I was completely surprised at the fact that most people, even even the workers, even the people who are supposed to guide, the guides in the Natural History Museum, had no idea who Alfred Russel Wallace was. This is sometimes very sad when you make this path-breaking discovery, and you are sidelined in the history of science. And that is why I wanted to do this program. It is a story of a kind of an underdog, Alfred Russel Wallace. It is singing. That is why I wanted to call it Singing About the Unsung. He is really unsung. It's very sad, actually. Then somebody said, "Whom are you talking?" I told him, "Okay, this man has a hat and he is just wearing a specs. He has a kind of butterfly net in his hand." He said, "Oh, okay, that guy. Come on in, come on in." He took me on a lift, and we went up 2 floors. In fact, I was standing with my daughter just few minutes back on nearly on that floor, and I couldn't figure out. So he was in an obscure corner. It was very surprising. The Natural History Museum is not celebrating the 200 years of Alfred Russel Wallace. There is not a single line written anywhere that there is a celebration there. There are big fossils of amazing animals and of extinct animals, and I mean, that would take you to an ancient world which don't exist now, and which actually says, which actually proves, gives the evidence that life has changed over the eons as the age of the earth progressed and as the you know layers of the earth changed. So, so what they wanted to showcase in that museum was that biology and geology, life and the earth's structure itself, its changes, are deeply interlinked. But I was also sad at the same time that this couldn't be done. Of course, there was beautiful collection. There were a lot of plants and some birds from India. In fact, of course, these are obviously these are dead animals and they're stuffed and kept in proper form. There's a amazing collection of birds. I want to actually make a kind of photo slideshow along with some commentary as a in the YouTube channel, but that would need a kind of editing, which I will do. So in Edinburgh, I went to the statue in St Andrew's Square of James Clerk Maxwell, and in that statue, uh, I wanted to read the plaque where they have written the equations, Maxwell's four equations describing the electromagnetic phenomena. Two equations are given in terms of divergence, and two equations are given in terms of curl. So, two scalar equations, two vector equations. And I had made up a video, but I wanted to load it then and there after making it, but couldn't because when I listened to it, my own voice was getting subdued by the huge noise that the wind was creating. A very strong wind was sweeping through that square, and the sound was so much that my own voice was getting completely subdued in that hissing sound. But it was interesting that if you hear, you can see the speed at which uh, the wind was moving, and even its movement is causing certain disturbance in the medium, and that is causing the sound. And basically, uh, can learn some physics. So Edinburgh had something very beautiful. They had beautiful parks to sit down, relax, and take a book. And a lot of people were reading books, which was a very good point. Their bookstore, the fourth floor or fifth floor, I don't remember, maybe fourth floor shop called Waterstone, which is a famous chain, but it has taken up all bookstore. The bookstore I went must have been an old bookstore in Edinburgh, which is now taken by Waterstones, like a chain. But it is having almost any subject you want on earth. It is there, whether it is about nature, whether it is about travel, whether it is about history or sociology or transport or whatever, or science or mathematics. So then and a lot of young people inside bookstores asking for books, and that is a sign of hope for the world. That they are not WhatsApping, if you want to say, like us, and they are mostly looking at books. And that is what I also wanted to say when I made this channel, small video for Maxwell, that I wanted my young viewers to read books, apart from doing WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever. But these WhatsApp or Facebook always need not give you correct scientific information, because people can have their own biases put into that. Because science cannot work with bias, science has to be free of bias. So that's the key thing. You cannot have a biased way of constructing mathematical proofs. You cannot say anything and say, okay, this is the proof. So there is a system to it, a method called the scientific method. Now, while I was there, and I went to that shop, Waterstone, and saw those young people, and which made me happy. And I wish we had these kind of bookstores in India, having four stores, and people just go in, take a coffee, look at books for hours, and then decide what to buy, not to buy. So I found a beautiful book about one of the person who was one of the greatest proponents of the scientific method, Galileo. I saw this book, wanted to buy Galileo by J.L. Hale-Bourne, published by Oxford University Press. Okay, I said, okay, let me forget this. How much it was? Maybe 14 pound or 15 pound. I said, let me forget it. Maybe I can have a cup of coffee. Then I said, okay, I'll go home and order this in Amazon. Then I found that essentially what Amazon was charging me was that money converted into Indian rupees. So that was stupid. But then I also got, at the same time, I bought from Amazon a book, which is a drama actually, called The Life of Galileo by Bertolt Brecht, who was a German uh, dramatist who actually fled from the clutches of the Nazis, and who later wrote these kind of poetry, dramas, which are supportive more of human values and human reason. So, of course, Galileo is naturally one of his choices, actually, as one of the characters. So, in Life of Galileo, I'll read a little part from there. So, I would like to call this little YouTube program as The Spirit of Galileo. The, and this is Life of Galileo mimics exactly the events that happened in the life of Galileo, his discoveries and his going from Padua in the near Venice to Florence and trying to convince scholars there who later get convinced, and but then he talks more about politics, religion, all those things, and not just about science, and then gets into Inquisition and was under home arrest for a last significant part of his life, and which was sad. So the problem here is that you can be speaking about the truth, but yet remain silent, just like Charles Darwin. He spoke the truth, he wrote about it, and he kept silent. He didn't speak about it publicly or make any hulla about his theory of evolution by natural selection. But others took it up, and people are divided into camps. They're still divided into camps, though there is tremendous evidence even at the molecular and gene level supporting Charles Darwin's ideas. And of course, now the things are much, much improved than what Darwin had said. The science has improved to a great extent. So that's the beauty of science, that it's always susceptible to change. When new evidence comes, new ideas are developed. New thinking replaces the old thinking. And in this drama called The Life of Galileo, that juncture is very beautifully captured. That even if you see a phenomena and you think that this is the way that things are happening, you could actually think in a very different way. So, without much ado, let me start reading from a bit from The Life of Galileo, the drama. So, Life of Galileo is published by Bloomsbury. So, the Galileo, the character, is really a character constructed by Brecht. In fact, of course, it is the real Galileo, but all the events and all the people who are there around him are not real. Some of them are very real characters. So now what has happened is that he essentially mimics the life of Galileo almost exactly, the events. But in between, there is a lot of dramatization of things which may or may not have happened. And there are certain things I tried to figure out which were not there, which were a part of his imagination. And so that's what, that's a dramatist would do. Everything cannot be exactly, then you are writing history, it's not drama. But sometimes while reading such dramas, you can even learn science, and that's why I want to recommend this Life of Galileo, especially for those who are in mathematics and physics, to have a look at this thing. And if you look at this thing, he is starting at the very beginning, chapter 1, Galileo Galilei. It's in page 5 here. So it's almost in the middle of the book. The first part is commentaries and all, you're telling more about Brecht and his work and all this kind of thing. So Galileo Galilei, a teacher of mathematics at Padua, in the university, of course, not in a school. When we think teacher, it means in a school. When we think professor, it must be in a college and university. That's our set thinking, way of thinking. It's mine too. Galileo Galilei, a teacher of mathematics at Padua, sets out to prove Copernicus's new cosmogony. Cosmogony is what you call cosmology. The Copernicus was speaking against the not established but well accepted Ptolemy's system of the earth, of the world, that Earth is the center of the universe and every planet or star that we could see at that time with naked eyes. There was no telescope. Galileo brought telescope into action for astronomy. That goes around the earth, including the sun. So it was a kind of geocentric universe, and that was accepted, and it was part of their papal, means Pope, and the church accepted it, and that kind of thing. And so that was the accepted thing. So knowledge was essentially standstill, maybe having few here and there. What Galileo observed actually was that he was observing certain things, but calculating things through Ptolemy's method was not matching with the observation. This is where actual scientific thing comes in. So if whatever you are calculating from your theory doesn't matches the observation repeatedly, then there's something wrong in the theory. Because there is no other way to perceive reality than by to observe it. There is nothing. I perceive reality through my senses. There is no other way of doing it. Okay. So it's becoming slightly longish, this session, this YouTube program. But after so many days, maybe you tolerate me for a bit longer time. So Galileo's rather wretched study in Padua. It's a morning, a boy, Andrea, the housekeeper, Mrs. Sarti's son, brings in a glass of milk and a roll. So it's written in the form of drama. So here is, you can see Galileo, here on this page, this one. No, this one. So it's Galileo and then Andrea, whatever, one speaking to the other. Galileo is now washing down to the waist, puffing and cheerful. Put that milk on the table and don't you shut any of those books. A lot of books opened on the table. Andrea, mother says we must pay the milkman or he will start making a circle round our house, Mr. Galilei. Galileo, describing a circle, you mean Andrea? Whichever you like. If you don't pay the bill, he will start describing a circle around us, Mr. Galilei. Galileo tells him, well, when Mr. Cambione, the bailiff, comes straight for us, what sort of distance between 2 points he is going to pick? So Andrea grinning. So he is actually grooming that young boy, the shortest. Galileo says, right, I have something for you. Look behind the star charts. So Andrea rummages behind the star charts and bring out a big wooden model of the Ptolemaic system. So Galileo was also very skilled in carpentry, building models and all this kind of things. And he was very, very strong in music. He could play, I think, the violin possibly. And he was also very good, an appreciator of literature and poetry. So this is quite amazing. We think, though, if I do science and technology, I should be just doing that, science and technology. And people possibly, even though many people in science have many other aspects of their life, they don't want to speak about it. Because this is how our world has become. We have compartmentalized things. Of course, that was also not a very fantastic world, but it was not that, scientists could do anything and they had a free run. Because when you want to change established knowledge, it needs huge courage, and Galileo had that, for which he faced consequence, and for which we are today uh, benefited. We have benefited because of that knowledge. A lot of things that we now see has come about. So Andrea says, what is it? Galileo says that's an armillary sphere. It's a contraption to show how planets move around the Earth according to our forefathers. Okay. Andrea, how? Let's examine it. Start at the beginning. Okay. In the middle, there's a small stone, says Andrea. Galileo said, okay, that's the Earth. Round it, there are rings inside one another. How many? Andrea counts. 8. Those are called the crystal sphere. Stuck to the rings are little balls. Galileo says the stars. Andrea said, then there are bands of words painted on them. What sort of words? Andrea says, name of stars, such as the lowest ball is the moon, it says. Above that is the sun. So there was around 6 planets at that time discovered. So moon, sun plus those 6, so 8. 8 of them rotating kind of every body had a sphere in which it resided and it rotated in that. So there was nothing called empty space. Nobody, people couldn't conceive that bodies could float in empty space. Of course, gravitational pull and all those things were not. Not even he didn't discover uh, gravity, but he had an idea that somehow larger bodies are making smaller bodies move around them. That idea he figured out. Anyway, we will not go into that details. The lowest ball is the moon, it says, and above that the sun. Now start the sun moving, Andrea. So Andrea moves the ring. That's great, but we are so shut in, says Andrea. Galileo drying himself. Yes, I felt the first time I saw one of those. We are not the only ones to feel it. He tosses the towel to Andrea for him to dry his back with. Walls and spheres and immobility. For 2000 years, people have believed that the sun and all the stars of heavens rotate around mankind. Pope, cardinal, princess, professors, captains, merchants, fishwives, and school kids thought they were sitting motionless inside this crystal sphere. But now we are breaking out of it, Andrea, at full speed. Because the old days are over and this is a new time. For the last 100 years, mankind has seemed to be expecting something. Our cities are crammed, so are men's minds. Superstition and the plague. In Galileo's lifetime, when he went to Florence to talk about his discovery in the Florentine Code, and so that things can go to the Rome papal astronomer Clavius, and he could finally get some recognition, kind of thing. Our cities are cramped, and so are men's minds, superstition and the plague. And during his stay, plague actually came to Florence. But now the word is that that's how things are. But they won't stay like that, because everything is in motion, my friend. That was the thing that Galileo understood. The law of inertia, the first law of Newton that we speak about, that if a body has to move with uniform velocity, no force is required. That great leap in the imagination was due to Galileo. So the law of inertia is actually Galileo's law. So Galileo understood that you cannot observe this fact on Earth, because whatever you do, wherever you throw something in the air, there is air resistance. If you roll something on a very plain ground, there is some friction. So there will be certain force which will alter its motion. You cannot be kept in uniform velocity. So he understood that if you really take out these forces, it will continue with uniform velocity. To understand that, to make a leap in that imagination, to figure out things where by taking out the inessentials and just think out the essential idea, which is key to Galileo's thinking and key to scientific thinking later on, that throw out the inessential and think of the essential only. That is an amazing way to do so, right? That is how he came to his conclusion about the law of inertia, to take this kind of step. Then this is a very big leap in the imagination, because you can never observe such a thing in the earth. But once you observe what can happen on earth, and then you can actually in your mind do some thought experiments, to conclude what can happen when certain things are taken away. So, which was later used heavily by Einstein to construct experiments in his mind called the Gedanken experiment or thought experiments. So now speaks to Andrea. I like to think that it began with the ships. As far as men could remember, they had always hugged the coast. Then suddenly they abandoned the coastline and ventured out across the seas. On our old continent, which is Europe, a rumor sprang up that there might be new ones, like Columbus went for the Americas. And since our ships began sailing to them, the laughing continents have got the message. The green ocean, the great ocean they feared, is a little puddle. And the vast desire has sprung up to know the reason for everything. Why a stone falls when you let it go and why it rises when you toss it up. Each day something fresh is discovered. Men of 100 even are getting the young people to bawl the latest examples into their ears. There have been a lot of discoveries, but there are still plenty to be found, so future generations should have enough to do. As a young man in Siena, he speaks about himself. I watched a group of building workers argue for 5 minutes, then abandon 1,000-year-old method of shifting granite blocks in favor of a new and more efficient arrangement of ropes. That is exactly what the idea is, that when new evidence comes in, new ideas have to be brought in. Then I knew that old days are over and this is a new time. Soon humanity is going to understand it's about the heavenly body on which it dwells. What is written in an old book is no longer good enough, means Aristotle's book he's talking about. For where faith has been enthroned for 1,000 years, doubt now sits. So, as Richard Feynman also keeps on telling, that if you really want to do science, the key thing is to have doubt. If you doubt that, is this what I'm thinking correct? Is this idea what they are telling me correct? If you have doubt and can convince yourself that, okay, no, I figure out that that is correct, or no, that's wrong, and one has to think in a different way because I can figure out some contrary evidences. So, doubt is the key to scientific achievement. Everyone says, right, that's what it says in the book, but let's have a look for ourselves. Let's check it up. The most solemn truths are being familiarly nudged, they've been poked. What was never doubted before is doubted now. This has created a draught which is blowing up the gold embroidered skirts of prelates and princes, revealing the fat and skinny legs underneath the legs like our own. The heavens, it turns out, are empty. Cheerful laughter is our response. But the water of the earth drives the new spinning machines, while the shipyards, the rope walks, and the sail lofts, 500 hands are moving together in a new system. So, it is my prophecy that in our own lifetime we'll see astronomy is being discussed in marketplaces. Even the fishwife's son will hasten off to school. For these novelty seeking people in our cities, in Italy of course, will be delighted with a new astronomy that sets the earth moving too. The old idea was always that the stars are fixed and the crystal vaults to stop them falling down. Today we have found the courage to let them soar through space without support, and they are traveling at full speed just like our ships, at full speed without support. And the earth is rolling cheerfully around the sun. The fishwives, merchants, princes, cardinals, even the popes are rolling with it. The universe has lost its center overnight and woken up to find it has countless centers. See the leap in the imagination. So that each one can now be seen as the center or none at all. Suddenly there's a lot of room. Our ships sail far overseas. Our planets move far into space. In chess to the rooks have begun sweeping far across the board. What does the poet say? Oh, early morning of beginnings. So he connects things with literature also. Andrea, oh, early morning of beginnings, oh, breath of the wind, cometh from new shores. And you'd better drink up the milk because people are sure to start arriving soon. Galileo. Have you understood what I told you yesterday? What? All about that Copernicus turning? Galileo said, yes. No. What do you want to understand me for? Make me understand for. That's what Andrea is telling. It's very difficult, and I'm not even 11 till October. Galileo, I particularly want to you to understand it because he was young, so he could freshly think. Getting people to understand it is the reason why I go on working and buying expensive books instead of paying the milkman. Andrea, but I can see with my own eyes that the sun goes down a different place where it rises, so it can say where. So how can it stay still? Because I see it going from east to west. Of course, it can't then. Galileo, you can see indeed. What can you see? Nothing at all. You just go up. Gawping is in seeing. You are just awed by it. He puts the iron washstand in the middle of the room. And he calls, okay, right, let that be the sun. Sit down, Andrea, sit on one of the chairs. And Galileo stands behind him. So he makes him sit on a chair. So here on one side, in the middle is that stand, cloth stand. And Galileo stands by. Where is the sun? Right or left of you? Andrea says, okay, it is on my left. And how does it get to be on your right? So can I think on it in a different way that you see the sun moving from left to right? Andrea said, by you carrying it to my right, of course. So the sun is moving. Galileo says, think, isn't there another way? He picks him up along with the chair and makes an about turn. So he was here, it is on the left, and then he just turns him like this. So he rotates him. And then asks, now where's the sun? Andrea said, on my right. Did it move? No, not really. So what did it move? So Andrea said, me. Galileo said, oh, wrong, you idiot, the chair moved, the chair rotated. But with me in it, of course, the chair is the earth and you are sitting on it. So here is the beauty, the alternative. You can, in science, it's very important to think in an alternative way, which might turn out to be the correct way of thinking, which did turn out later on. So this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drama, and I think should be read actually, to see how he faced an inquisition and how he wanted scientific thinking and rational thinking should permeate when we think about the world around us. So with this I end this program, and I hope you liked it, and I'll try to patch up some program about this British Natural History Museum and my kind of a small speech about James Clerk Maxwell in front of his statue, which is amazing. I hardly find a statue of a scientist in India right in the middle of a city. It's impossible, possibly. I have not seen. I don't see about even of Ramanujan. So, or even, of course, Aryabhatta and my favorite Brahmagupta is kind of, obviously we have to imagine them. But still, Aryabhatta statue is there in Ayuka in Pune, in Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics. So, but we don't have these things, or even J.C. Bose or S.N. Bose, whatever. So we will discuss this James Clerk Maxwell business after I get the things edited. So now, my dear friends, my dear younger friends who want to do science, engineering, medicine, for them, let Galileo's spirit govern you. Let his spirit open your mind, and his spirit open you to thinking and to doubt and to bring in new ideas in this world. I am sure all of those who are watching this would one day do something fantastic in their lives. And with all my best wishes to all of you, I end this video and wishing you a very good weekend.